Oh wow. Guess I'm brushing up some knowledge on JavaScript. Oh god. Yeah. Uh, mm, mm, Never seen this. Yeah. These are easy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I do. Pretty simple. Yeah, I'd rather look at an actual source code of someone doing JavaScript. What is it? What? No. Static routes. Hmm. Smooth scroll. Event listener. Navigate. Update. Most of which are side effects or DOM manipulation. I don't know. I feel like this is not worth it. They can probably ask me stuff and I would still know. So Ah, I want to get started my day. What?
On January 17th, 2025, the Federal Trade Commission posted a press release on its website saying that due to their referral, the Department of Justice of the United States had gone after Genshin Impact's developer. The lawsuit title is crazy in itself. The United States versus Cognosphere, the parent company of Genshin Impact. I never thought I'd see that sentence in my life. They allege that Genshin Impact has deceived children, teens, and other players into spending hundreds of dollars on prizes they stood little chance of winning, as well as having a blatant disrespect towards children's privacy rights, and that's barely scraping the surface, guys. Look, this came out of nowhere. It caught everyone by surprise. But it turns out that the FTC has been working on this investigation for years now, as early as 2022. What was even more shocking to many, for
EA has so many games that do the same, not to mention so many other game companies. Yeah.
Years now, as early as 2022.
Because it's supposed to be a Chinese game.
What was even more shocking to many is that instead of countersuing, Genshin Impact's developer didn't. They ended up settling, paying over $20 million and having to change multiple aspects of their monetization in game. Additionally, every single news outlet at this point has talked about this, okay? This game is such a phenomenon that yes, whenever something like this happens, it does impact the game industry as a whole. The lawsuit itself that was filed by the FTC contains a lot of interesting little surprises, like how some characters are mentioned by name or how SS Sniper Wolf makes a fucking appearance. The community reaction, though, resulted in an implosion of people completely fighting each other on different opinions. The impact that this lawsuit has had has already been huge, but it stands to be even bigger in the future, so we have to talk about it. Let's do this. If you weren't born yesterday and have played video games for like the last 10 years at least, you know the term microtransactions and loot boxes. You couldn't have avoided them, even if you wanted to. The term loot box has gotten so big that you can find it on the website of the UK Parliament or on an Australian government website. There's a lot of controversy surrounding these game mechanics because for many, they are very similar to what you'd find in a casino, except this is marketed to all ages. Concern kept growing as parents started to notice that the games their children were playing had a lot of gambling mechanics incorporated into them. This all somewhat culminated into the very infamous moment in which the UK brought forth some gaming executives and questioned them about their loot box mechanics, with this EA executive saying that they're not loot boxes, they're just surprise mechanics.
Well, first, we don't call them loot boxes. I think that was
whatever term you wish to apply to them. Do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics.
You know, what's funny to me is that these online casinos, right? They don't call themselves casinos. They call themselves gaming providers, right? Like, oh my God, hey, you make slot machines, right? No, I make games. I am a game developer. This sounds like the same exact mental gymnastics. This was back in 2019, and people thought that finally this gambling plague would leave their games alone, but unfortunately, nothing really happened. One of the most infamous companies in all this, of course, is EA Games. They make so much money from microtransactions. They call that extra content. In 2024, they made $4.4 billion from microtransactions, and half of it came from FIFA's Ultimate Team mode. Or sorry, EA FC 24, because they lost the FIFA trademark. The premise is simple. You build your own team to play against players. But the way you get the best players is by opening packs and relying fully on luck to get the ones that you want. In 2020, the Dutch court ruled that EA Games has 1 week to make changes to how this mechanic works, otherwise they would fine them 500,000 euros a week up to 10 million euros until they do. Many people saw this as a victory, but EA said, no, we're not going to do that. In fact, we're going to appeal. And 2 years later, that fine got canceled. Nothing's really changed in that regard. Look, one thing was for certain by that point, loot boxes were becoming more and more taboo. As companies became increasingly fearful of costly regulation, they started looking at other monetization mechanics and found inspiration in Fortnite's item shop. You'd get a bunch of rare items, you could buy them for points, and if you didn't buy them, then they disappeared and you would never know if you could get them again. Fortnite found huge profitability with this business model as well as their battle pass, and other companies found success with this business model too. Not all of them though, okay? Not all of them. However, on the other side of the planet, you still had many game companies using a monetization system similar to loot boxes, and it was getting very profitable. They were called gacha games. There are so many gacha games out there, most of them on mobile, and many of them not even being able to survive for more than a few years before being, well, deleted. You'll always find new releases and you'll always hear news of old games shutting down. But where the hell did they come from? Well, it's from where all the other good things come from too. Japan. It originated from the term gachapon, which are these machines here. Let's take the example of this car gachapon machine where you put 300 yen and you're hoping to get your favorite car out of these 5 different cars. The idea here is that you're gambling, but you're gambling on preference, not on money. After putting your money in this machine, you're receiving a car, whether you like it or not. It's just that you might not be getting the one that you want. And that's exactly how gacha games work as well. Wikipedia takes this even further and says that games such as Magic the Gathering are actually Wikipedia takes this even further and says that games such as Magic the Gathering are actually a type of gacha. This would make Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all those games gacha as well, even though no one really refers to them that way. Now when you hear gacha, you're thinking of a game, free to play, most likely on mobile, that's either from China, Korea, or Japan. And this is where Genshin Impact came in on September 28th, 2020. Gacha before Genshin was very niche. It was also mostly on mobile. Genshin changed that by not only making it available on PC, but on PS4 as well. More importantly, it was appealing to the mainstream audience and not to a niche audience. So if you liked open world games, it was enough for you to try Genshin. But the thing is, I don't think people quite understand just how much money Genshin makes. Half of its revenue comes from its home country, China. But it's estimated that by 2025, it'll be on track to hit $10 billion in total since release. Some of you watching might be thinking, oh, wait a second, that's not really a lot of money. Well, I don't really blame you. The government throws $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion like it's $5 in your pocket from time to time, right? So here's a fun little comparison. Ever since Grand Theft Auto 5 released, if you include all their copies sold and all the revenue generated from GTA Online, they've made $8.5 billion. Do you understand now? Like, are we on the same page? Genshin Impact in 5 years has made more than Grand Theft Auto 5 in over a decade. That's how profitable gacha can be for the top companies. For the first 6 months of 2024, Genshin Impact stayed their top earner, with Honkai Star Rail, another game of theirs, being very close second. So it shows that even though gacha games have low life expectancy, Genshin was still holding on quite well. The Federal Trade Commission, of course, will keep track of these things. They're constantly looking at the top earners in app stores, whether it be Apple's or Google's. And their goal as an organization is to stand up for the American consumer when they're not being bribed, of course. The first thing you see on their website is COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, and they were going to use this as a basis to actually file a complaint against Genshin Impact's developer. Which brings us here. United States of America versus Cognosphere. Now you might be wondering, why Cognosphere? Why not Hoyoverse? That's the game's company. No? Well, it's complicated. Domestically in China, they're still known as MiHoYo. Globally, for partnerships, they're Hoyoverse. But the parent company that oversees finances and transactions is Cognosphere, based in Singapore just like Hoyoverse. But for sake of clarity, I'll just say Hoyoverse from now on. This case is split into 2 major parts. The first part focusing on the Children's Privacy Protection Act, and the second part focusing on the monetization mechanics used by Genshin Impact. But the thing they start off with, and I find this really funny, they try to explain why Genshin is directed to children under 13, right? They make it a point. Look at this. They argue that Paimon, right, your companion throughout the whole game, and the mascot of the game in the App Store is directed towards children. Some people will definitely agree with this, some others won't. But I can tell you right now, a lot of adults find Paimon annoying, so maybe they're onto something here. I don't know. I'm not so sure here, but I just find it so funny. But this for me is where it gets hilarious, okay? They show you an ad where it says Cute Force, where you see 3 characters you can play in the game, Diona, Chi-Chi, and Klee. This to them is similar to children's art, and that these promotional materials are appealing to children because they emphasize the childlike qualities of these heroes. Look, bro, I don't know who's got to tell him, but in the gacha sphere, this ad would appeal more to certain adults than children, okay? But that's all I'll say on the matter, okay? Let's keep going. They allege that Hoyoverse intentionally hired influencers that have an audience of children to advertise the game to. For example, many of these paid influencers won or were finalists for categories related to gaming and online media at the Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards. Some of them were big content creators for Minecraft or Roblox. And they also allege that some internal planning documents used by Hoyoverse made note of whether hired influencers were known for producing Minecraft or Roblox-related content. To strengthen this argument, they mention a hide-and-seek minigame that happens once a year in Genshin Impact by the name of Windtrace, and how they hired an influencer by the name of It's Funny to play it on their YouTube channel. You know what? I mean, this does look like Cocomelon, but in Roblox. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, it's the same kind of thumbnail. It does look like a kid's channel. But it's important to note here that there was nothing mentioning any of the gacha mechanics, right? It was just a bunch of friends playing together like you would watch C-nanners playing prop hunt, right? Are you guys old enough to understand this reference? God, I hope so. But these things were enough for the FTC to determine that Genshin Impact is directed to children within the meaning of the COPPA rule. Their biggest issue relating to COPPA was Hoyoverse collecting personal information from children without obtaining parental consent. They outline how here. It's through their social network. So if you didn't know, Hoyoverse has a social network called Hoyolab where you can share things from all their different games, find resources, and also do a daily check-in that gives you rewards. The FTC argues that in many instances, Hoyoverse has become aware that Hoyolab users are children. Some users have stated or indicated in communications reviewed by Hoyoverse that they were under 13 years old, for example, in social media postings on Hoyolab or in posted photographs, videos, or audio files containing the child's image or voice from which it was apparent that the user was a child. Hoyoverse has in some instances taken limited and insufficient corrective steps when it has discovered a post by a child, such as removing the post in question and muting the user from posting on the Hoyolab social network, but without deleting or seeking verifiable parental consent for the use or disclosure of other personal information of the child already collected. So this is how they argue that despite them knowing that they had children on their website, they took no steps and therefore collected their personal information with no issues on their end. And you know what? The FTC is not wrong at all here. It took me less than 5 minutes to find a minor posting their cosplay on Hoyolab. I'm not going to show the post itself or the person's username, but all you got to know is it says from a minor, okay? It's in the title and it has over 400 likes, which is viral for Hoyolab. Now don't get this twisted. It doesn't mean that minors shouldn't be having fun cosplaying their favorite characters, but the entire point of COPPA is for them to have protection while doing it. And if Hoyoverse doesn't acknowledge that they're on their platform, then what's stopping someone from following them, interacting with them, and maybe even messaging them harmful things? Nothing. There are no protections in place. The FTC then reveals that the investigation into Genshin Impact has been going on for a while, and when Hoyoverse actually became aware of it in December 2022, they sneakily changed a little section in their privacy policy, saying our services are not marketed to or intended for children. But for the FTC, that means nothing because in their opinion, Hoyoverse has not sought to collect parental consent at any point in time. And then this is where things get interesting. We're talking about monetization, but not just in regards to children, but also in regards to something the FTC calls dark patterns. In this case, the FTC says that Hoyoverse used confusing systems of virtual currency exchanged for loot boxes and deceived people about the low odds of desirable prizes to trick players into spending much more than they meant, making it a dark pattern. So in Genshin Impact, in order to pull for a limited 5-star character, you need a currency called Intertwined Fates. One fate means one pull. To get fates, you need to buy them with primogems. One fate equals 160 primogems. You can earn primogems in-game, but if you want to spend money, you buy Genesis crystals. You can then use the Genesis crystals to convert them to primogems to then use the primogems to buy the fates. But when you buy the Genesis crystals, you're not told how much they equal in terms of pulls. You have to do math. You have to unfortunately use your brain, take out the calculator, and calculate how much does this mean? If I spend $100, how many pulls do I realistically get? You don't have a straightforward answer in-game, and this is why the FTC is alleging that this is a dark pattern strategy. Additionally, they say that on banners, you see the words probability increased. You also see things like huge drop rate boost on marketing material, which is another dark pattern because it's deceiving. There's no drop rate boost. It's the same thing on every banner, except this one's limited for 20 days. This leads us to the next part, in which the FTC says that Hoyoverse had hired influencers specifically to show off these gambling mechanics to make them fun for children. This is when I would encounter a name I never thought I'd see in 2025, which is SS Sniper Wolf. The FTC says that in May 2021, Hoyoverse hired her and paid her more than $100,000 to record 2 videos promoting Genshin Impact, building upon their narrative that this is a 2-time winner of the Nickelodeon's Kids' Choice Awards in the favored gamer category, so her audience has a lot of kids watching. Now here's where it gets really tricky. She was pulling for characters, right? Typically, if you do a 10 pull, you'll always see a purple light if you don't win a 5-star because you're guaranteed to get a 4-star every 10 pulls. If you were to pull for a 5-star, you see a golden light. This is how you know that, oh my god, I just got a 5-star. In Sniper Wolf's video, it's purple, okay? This means that it's a 4-star. It's impossible that a 5-star is in there. And yet, guys, I'm telling you, you will not believe what happens when she gets to the final pull, okay? First off, remember, we pulled 10 wishes, okay? You cannot pull more than 10. You cannot pull less except for 1 at a time, right? And yet, all of a sudden you see 11 and then 12. And oh, look, this is a 5-star and a purple pull. Wow. Wow, who would have ever thought, dude? Wow, your RNG is really good, dude. It's so good that it defied game mechanics and is as crazy as someone getting a rare in a CSGO case and it turning out to be a skin worth 2 cents. You know, this is how crazy this is, just so you understand. The FTC alleges here that Hoyoverse are complicit because they got to review this video before it was published since they were paying her to do it, and they still approved this. You cannot wish for more than 10 times at the same time, and yet here you saw 12, okay, that was already misleading, and you see a 5-star character appear when the highest one was supposed to be 4 stars. Another dark pattern. Look, part of the reason why many Genshin fans were shocked to find this lawsuit was because when it comes to their gacha mechanics, Genshin are very honest with their odds. You have this massive array of paragraphs that tell you exactly what to expect when you pull and the probability. I saw many people arguing this, saying, dude, who doesn't read this? Like, you have to be an idiot to not read the odds. And yet, the FTC is alleging that these odds are misleading. Look, when you get a 5-star character, you have a coin flip that plays in the background. If you win the coin flip, you get the character that you want, the limited character. If you lose it, you get a character that no one wants, someone from the standard pool. When Genshin Impact says that the base probability of winning a 5-star character is 0.6%, they're being misleading. So what the FTC says is that it should be 0.3%, a 3 in 1,000 chance to get the character that's actually on the limited banner, which is what people are actually pulling for, right? Realistically, no one's pulling for their 6th Diluc or Chi-Chi, right? All these things added up make up this case. The FTC believes that through Genshin Impact, Hoyoverse has failed to protect children's data, has failed to get parental consent, has used dark patterns in its monetization mechanics, and that they have made a conscious effort targeting children in their marketing campaigns. Very shortly after, the community on Twitter caught wind of this and well, a lot of them had different things to say. PC Gamer published this article saying the FTC says Genshin Impact deceived children, teens, and other players into spending hundreds of dollars on prizes they stood little chance of winning. This then led into the biggest tweet of this entire shitstorm, which was made by Doro44, a well-renowned Genshin content creator. Here's what he said. Not to defend the multi-billion-dollar company, but aren't the gacha mechanics explained in game? If you're allowing your kids to spend your money in a gacha game, then that's just bad parenting. I'm not sorry. But I will say, implementing more protective measures so that kids don't go spending money they shouldn't isn't a bad thing. So obviously, as you can tell from the amount of comments, Doro received quite a bit of controversy. People were very divided on this. And while many also tended to agree with him, there was a lot of chaos. What I will say, though, is that PC Gamer knew exactly what they were doing here, okay? This title doesn't really sum up the entire case very well. There would have been way less chaos if they just said, FTC sues Genshin Impact over Child Safety Protection Act. Like, that's completely different than what they're saying here. The damage was done, though. This tweet was the ground zero for what erupted on Twitter. This meme right here was being passed around a lot, right? Like if someone felt that you were siding with Hoyoverse over the FTC, leave alone the multi-million-dollar company. Another content creator siding with Doro was Mr. Pokey, saying to people that are shitting on Doro, it's not a matter of whether the parents are aware that these are gacha games, but how the hell are your kids getting access to your credit cards? If my mom found out I swiped her credit card when I'm 12, I'd be beaten beyond recognition, implying that in this case, the consumer needs to face responsibility, not just the company, with Doro thanking him for sharing his same opinion. On the other hand, you had Braxophone, a well-known guide maker in the Genshin community, saying this to Doro's tweet. It's parents' job to parent kids, but there's no justifiable reason for gacha to exist in the first place other than to disguise gambling as a fun game. We should not normalize gambling up to $300 every 3 weeks for game content, and especially not to children. Gacha is predatory. He then goes on to say that the only reason he plays gacha games is because they're the only live service games that are anime-based that are constantly updated. Bear in mind, this is someone who makes their entire living around gacha, and yet even he couldn't defend this monetization mechanic. Another opinion was not just from a content creator, but someone who has a child. Gotcha Smack is a content creator that makes content on Hoyoverse games in general, and here's what he had to say. Here's my take. The average 35-plus parent in the world has no earthly clue what a gacha game really is. The games also hide their gacha in their descriptions. They don't even disclose a single loot box in any of their advertising, nor do they mention the price points. The typical mom or dad is going to examine that it's a 12-plus-year-old rating game, examine the description as well as the cartoon visuals, and go, this seems fine. This is deceptive and intentional by the companies because they know parents have no earthly clue about mobile gaming because most parents don't play games period or understand the industry the way we do. The kid gets addicted and runs into the price points, and how that unfolds is absolutely due to a lack of supervision. Regardless, these companies need to disclose in their marketing and promotions that they are in fact gacha games that contain gambling elements, which falls on a lack of regulation from the government. Parents would see it in the description and say, no shot my kid is playing this, long overdue regulation needed. Now someone did comment that the price points are actually there for the game. On the App Store you can see how much all the bundles cost, but if we're going to be objective here, every single mobile game at this point has the same exact price points for packs, with the highest one always being $100, so it's not really enough for a parent to understand that there's gambling here. This had become a very heated topic for a while in between content creators and gacha game players. In the end though, Hoyoverse themselves came out with a statement regarding the FTC's lawsuit. They said, Cognosphere, the distributor of Genshin Impact, has reached a settlement agreement with the United States Federal Trade Commission to strengthen and increase transparency around our parental consent and virtual currency practices. A statement from Cognosphere is below. Animation-style games and shows are well received by global audiences and players across various ages. Genshin Impact is a popular free-to-play anime-style game designed for older teens and adults. While we believe many of the FTC's allegations are inaccurate, we agreed to the settlement because we value the trust of our community and share a commitment to transparency for our players. Under the agreement, we will introduce a new age gate and parental consent protections for children and young teens and increase our in-game disclosures around virtual currency and rewards for players in the US in the coming months. So in other words, the FTC's lawsuit's bullshit, but hey, listen, we can't be bothered to countersue. Take your $20 million, we'll make that back in a day. And yeah, I guess we'll change some things around in the game. Okay, this is as straightforward as it gets, guys. $20 million for them is child's play. But this hasn't stopped people from comparing Hoyo versus game mechanics to other games that are operating with no issues. For example, look at the odds that EA games give you for FIFA packs. When you open a premium gold pack, they say that it's a 4.2% chance to get a player gold 84 plus or higher in terms of stats. But what if I wanted a player that's like 94 or 96? What are the odds there? We don't know. Let's not forget that even Apex Legends, I know it's a dead game, still has loot boxes as well. And let's not pretend here that children don't use these, and let's not pretend that EA Games actually seeks parental consent. This is why many people have shared the opinion that the US government is actually using COPPA, weaponizing it in order to go after companies they don't like, most notably Chinese companies like TikTok and Hoyoverse. But how will this affect Genshin Impact and other Hoyoverse games? Well, as a start, you're probably going to have an option to immediately buy Fates instead of Genesis Crystals, to then convert them to Primogems, and then buy Fates with them. There's probably going to be an option that's like, yo, buy 20 pulls for this much, buy 30 pulls for this much, among other little changes. So in some ways, yes, this only serves to benefit the consumer. The consumer is not losing anything here. But the question is this: now that we know that the FTC has been working on this complaint for years, who else are they targeting? There are other gacha games out there that compete with Genshin Impact directly, like Wuthering Waves. It's also a Chinese game, but a $20 million fine will severely impact their cash flow. It won't just be a walk in the park like Hoyoverse. So will this stop here, or will it get worse? That's the question on everyone's minds. Look, one thing is for certain in the end, gacha loves American money. But let's see how far they'll comply with this. And let's see if the FTC will seek to go after other, more predatory video game companies in the future. For now though, that's pretty much it. If you watched till the end, I love you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video whenever that is. Mwah.
Crazy. Crazy. Kind of crazy, yeah. Today is Saturday. Yeah. lost my audio. No. Yeah, that's decoupled system. I guess that's because, yeah.
China's latest AI breakthrough has leapfrogged the world.
I think we should take the development out of China very, very seriously.
A game-changing move that does not come from OpenAI, Google, or Meta.
There is a new model that has all of the valley buzzing.
But from a Chinese lab called DeepSeek.
It's opened a lot of eyes of like what is actually happening in AI in China.
What took Google and OpenAI...
DeepSeek is from what team is it? I don't remember. I don't even know. DeepSeek, Chinese company dedicated making AGI reality, 2023.
Years and hundreds of millions of dollars to build, DeepSeek says took it just 2 months and less than $6 million.
They have the best open source model, and all the American developers are building on that.
I'm Deirdre Bosa with the Tech Check Take, China's AI breakthrough.
China's crazy. They have DeepSeek, we got deep shit.
It was a technological leap that shocked Silicon Valley. A newly unveiled, free, open source AI model that beat some of the most powerful ones on the market. But it wasn't a new launch from OpenAI or model announcement from Anthropic. This one was built in the East by a Chinese research lab called DeepSeek. And the details behind its development stunned top AI researchers here in the US. First, the cost. The AI lab reportedly spent just $5.6 million to build DeepSeek version 3.
That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Yeah, that's like little money in AI. Holy shit. Yeah. I haven't read their research paper. It's probably gonna be a banger. DeepSeek, live and open source. They have their paper as well. Paper link, yeah. Oh, it's a PDF, okay. Is it a PDF? I don't think it's supposed to be a PDF. Hold up, hold up.
China's latest AI breakthrough has leapfrogged to build
Impressive in terms of both
just to build version 3.
DeepSeek V3 technical report. No, this is a evaluation. DeepSeek V3. Oh shit. Oh shoot, oh shoot. Research DeepSeek. DeepSeek all one.
Compare that to OpenAI, which is spending $5 billion a year, and Google, which expects capital expenditures in 2024 to soar to over $50 billion. And then there's Microsoft that shelled out more than $13 billion just to invest in OpenAI. But even more stunning, how DeepSeek's Scrappier model was able to outperform the lavishly funded American ones.
To see the DeepSeek new model, it's super impressive in terms of both how they have really effectively done an open source model that does what is this inference time compute, and it's super compute efficient.
It beat Meta's Llama, OpenAI's GPT-4o, and Anthropic's Claude Sonnet 3.5 on accuracy on wide-ranging tests.
GPT-4o, Llama 3, yeah, 400 billion model, DeepSeek v2.5, Quen 2.5, Claude 3.5. Wow, just crazy. Yeah, Chinese are insane. Oh wow. Hmm.
A subset of 500 math problems, an AI math evaluation, coding competitions, and a test of spotting and fixing bugs in code. Quickly following that up with a new reasoning model called R1, which just as easily outperformed OpenAI's cutting-edge O1 in some of those third-party tests.
Today, we released Humanity's Last Exam, which is a new evaluation or benchmark.
Oh, Scale AI. Okay, we've heard this guy before.
Of AI models that we produced by getting, math, physics, biology, chemistry professors to provide the hardest questions they could possibly imagine. DeepSeek, which is the leading Chinese AI lab, their model is actually the top performing or roughly on par with the best American models.
They accomplished all that despite the strict semiconductor restrictions that the US government has imposed on China, which has essentially shackled them out of computing power. Washington has drawn a hard line against China in the AI race, cutting the country off from receiving America's most powerful chips like NVIDIA's H100 GPUs. Those were once thought to be essential to building a competitive AI model, with startups and big tech firms alike scrambling to get their hands on any available. But DeepSeek turned that on its head, sidestepping the rules by using NVIDIA's less performant H800s to build the latest model and showing that the chip export controls were not the chokehold DC intended.
They were able to take whatever hardware they were
export control
was only 2.7. Wait, what? 2.7 million H800 GPUs for its full training.
Were not the chokehold DC intended.
They were able to take whatever hardware they were trained on, but use it way more efficiently.
But just who's behind DeepSeek anyway? Despite its breakthrough, very, very little is known about its lab and its founder, Liang Wenfeng. According to Chinese media reports, DeepSeek was born out of a Chinese hedge fund called High Flyer Quant that manages about $8 billion in assets. The mission on its developer site, it reads simply, unravel the mystery of AGI with curiosity. Answer the essential question with long-termism. The leading American AI startups, meanwhile, OpenAI and Anthropic, they have detailed charters and constitutions that lay out their principles and their founding missions, lengthy sections on AI safety and responsibility. Despite several attempts to reach someone at DeepSeek, we never got a response.
How did they actually assemble this talent? How did they assemble all the hardware? How did they assemble the data to do all this? We don't know, and it's never been publicized, and hopefully we can learn that.
But the mystery brings into sharp relief just how urgent and complex the AI face-off against China has become. Because it's not just DeepSeek. Other, more well-known Chinese AI models have carved out positions in the race with limited resources as well. Kai-Fu Lee, he's one of the leading AI researchers in China, formerly leading Google's operations there. Now his startup, 01.ai, it's attracting attention, becoming a unicorn just 8 months after founding, and bringing in almost $14 million in revenue in 2024.
The thing that shocks my friends in the Silicon Valley is not just our performance, but that we trained the model with only $3 million. And GPT-4 was trained by 80 to 100 million.
Trained with just $3 million. Alibaba's QN, meanwhile, cut costs by as much as 85% on its large language models in a bid to attract more developers and signaling that the race is on. China's breakthrough undermines the lead that our AI labs were once thought to have. In early 2024, former Google CEO Eric Schmidt, he predicted China was 2 to 3 years behind the US in AI. But now, Schmidt is singing a different tune. Here he is on ABC's This Week.
Well, I used to think we were a couple of years ahead of China, but China has caught up in the last 6 months in a way that is remarkable. The fact of the matter is that a couple of the Chinese programs, one, for example, is called DeepSeek, looks like they've caught up.
It raises major questions about just how wide OpenAI's moat really is. Back when OpenAI released ChatGPT to the world in November of 2022, it was unprecedented and uncontested. Now the company faces not only the international competition from Chinese models, but fierce domestic competition from Google's Gemini, Anthropic's Claude, and Meta's open source Llama model. And now the game has changed. The widespread availability of powerful open source models allows developers to skip the demanding, capital-intensive steps of building and training models themselves. Now they can build on top of existing models, making it significantly easier to jump to the frontier, that is the front of the race, with a smaller budget and a smaller team.
In the last 2 weeks, AI research teams have really opened their eyes and have become way more ambitious on what's possible with a lot less capital. So previously, to get to the frontier, you would have to think about hundreds of millions of dollars of investment and perhaps $1 billion of investment. What DeepSeek has now done here in Silicon Valley is it's opened our eyes to what you can actually accomplish with 10, 15, 20, $30 million.
It also means any company like OpenAI that claims the frontier today could lose it tomorrow. That's how DeepSeek was able to catch up so quickly. It started building on the existing frontier of AI. Its approach focusing on iterating on existing technology rather than reinventing the wheel.
They can take a really good big model and use a process called distillation. And what distillation is basically you use a very large model to help your small model get smart at the thing that you want it to get smart at. And that's actually very cost efficient.
It closed the gap by using available data sets, applying innovative tweaks, and leveraging existing models. So much so that DeepSeek's model has run into an identity crisis. It's convinced that it's ChatGPT. When you ask it directly, what model are you? DeepSeek responds, I'm an AI language model created by OpenAI, specifically based on the GPT-4 architecture. Leading OpenAI CEO Sam Altman to post in a thinly veiled shot at DeepSeek just days after the model was released, it's relatively easy to copy something that you know works. It's extremely hard to do something new, risky, and difficult when you don't know if it will work.
That doesn't undermine their ability to make it cost efficient. I don't get it. Yeah, he's coping AF.
But that's not exactly what DeepSeek did. It emulated GPT by leveraging OpenAI's existing outputs and architecture principles while quietly introducing its own enhancements, really blurring the line between itself and ChatGPT. It all puts pressure on a closed source leader like OpenAI to justify its costlier model as more and potentially nimbler competitors emerge.
Everybody copies everybody in this field. You can say Google did the transformer first. It's not OpenAI, and OpenAI just copied it. Google built the first large language models. They didn't productize it, but OpenAI did it in a productized way. So you can say all this in many ways. It doesn't matter.
So if everyone is copying one another, it raises the question: is massive spend on individual LLMs even a good investment anymore? Now, no one has as much at stake as OpenAI. The startup raised over $6 billion in its last funding round alone. But the company has yet to turn a profit. And with its core business centered on building the models, it's much more exposed than companies like Google and Amazon, who have cloud and ad businesses bankrolling their spend. For OpenAI, reasoning will be key. A model that thinks before it generates a response, going beyond pattern recognition to analyze, draw logical conclusions, and solve really complex problems. For now, the startup's O1 reasoning model, it's still cutting edge, but for how long?
Researchers at Berkeley showed that they could build a reasoning model for $450 just last week. So you can actually create these models that do thinking for much, much less. You don't need those huge amounts of to pre-train the model. So I think the game is shifting.
It means that staying on top may require as much creativity as capital. DeepSeek's breakthrough also comes at a very tricky time for the AI darling, just as OpenAI is moving to a for-profit model and facing unprecedented brain drain. Can it raise more money at ever higher valuations if the game is changing? As Shmuel Palhapatia puts it, let me say the quiet part out loud. AI model building is a money trap.
So much model build, nothing done yet. God. Yeah. There's no moat.
Those chip restrictions from the US government, they were intended to slow down the race, to keep American tech on American ground, to stay ahead in the race.
What we want to do is we want to keep it in this country. China is a competitor and others are competitors.
So instead, the restrictions might have been just what China needed.
Necessity is the mother of invention. Because they had to go figure out workarounds, they actually ended up building something a lot more efficient.
It's really remarkable the amount of progress they've made with as little capital as it's taken them to make that progress.
It drove them to get creative, with huge implications. DeepSeek is an open source model, meaning that developers have full access and they can customize its weights or fine-tune it to their liking.
So it's known that once open source is caught up or improved over closed source software, all developers migrate to that.
But key is that it's also inexpensive. The lower the cost, the more attractive it is for developers to adopt.
The bottom line is our inference cost is 10 cents per million tokens. And that's 1/30th of what the typical comparable model charges.
And where's it going?
Well, the 10 cents would lead to building apps for much lower costs. So if you wanted to build a U.com or Perplexity or some other app, you can either pay OpenAI $4.40 per million tokens, or if you have our model, it costs you just 10 cents.
It could mean that the prevailing model in global AI may be open source. As organizations and nations come around to the idea that collaboration and decentralization, those things can drive innovation faster and more efficiently than proprietary closed ecosystems. A cheaper, more efficient, widely adopted open source model from China, that could lead to a major shift in dynamics.
That's more dangerous because then they get to own the mind share, the ecosystem.
In other words, the adoption of a Chinese open source model at scale, that could undermine US leadership while embedding China more deeply into the fabric of global tech infrastructure.
There's always like a point where open source can stop being open source too, right? So the licenses are very favorable today, but if
you could close it.
Exactly, if over time they can always change the license. So it's important that we actually have people here in America building, and that's why Meta is so important.
Another consequence of China's AI breakthrough is giving its Communist Party control of the narrative. AI models built in China, they're forced to adhere to a certain set of rules set by the state. They must embody core socialist values. Studies have shown that models created by Tencent and Alibaba, they will censor historical events like Tiananmen Square, deny human rights abuse, and filter criticism of Chinese political leaders.
That contest is about whether we're going to have democratic AI informed by democratic values built to serve democratic purposes, or we're going to end up with autocratic AI.
If developers really begin to adopt these models en masse because they're more
Yeah. I don't know. US coping. US is coping. Of course they are.
efficient, that could have a serious ripple effect, trickle down to even consumer-facing AI applications, and influence how trustworthy those AI-generated responses from chatbots really are.
There's really only 2 countries right now in the world that can build this at scale. and that is the U.S. And China. And so, the consequences, the stakes in and around this are just enormous.
Enormous stakes, enormous consequences, and hanging in the balance, America's lead. For a topic so complex and new, we turn to an expert who's actually building in the space and model agnostic. Perplexity co-founder and CEO Arvind Srinivas, who you heard from throughout our piece, he sat down with me for more than 30 minutes to discuss DeepSeek and its implications, as well as Perplexity's roadmap. We think it's worth listening to that whole conversation, so here it is. So first, I want to know what the stakes are. Describe the AI race between China and the US and what's at stake.
Okay, so first of all, China has a lot of disadvantages in competing with the US. Number one is the fact that they don't get access to all the hardware that we have access to here. So they're kind of working with lower end GPUs than us. It's almost like working with the previous generation GPUs scrappily. And the fact that the bigger models tend to be more smarter naturally puts them at disadvantage. But the flip side of this is that necessity is the mother of invention. Because they had to go figure out workarounds, they actually ended up building something a lot more efficient. It's like saying, hey, look, you guys really got to get a top-notch model, and I'm not going to give you resources, and then figure out something, right? Unless it's mathematically possible to prove that it's impossible to do so, you can always try to come up with something more efficient. But that is likely to make them come up with a more efficient solution than America. And of course, they've open sourced it, so we can still adopt something like that here. But that kind of talent they're building to do that will become an edge for them over time, right? The leading open source model in America is Meta's Llama family. It's really good. It's kind of like a model that you can run on a computer. But even though it got pretty close to GPT-4 and Sonnet at the time of its release, the model that was closest in quality was the giant 405B, not the 70B that you could run on your computer. And so there was still not a small, cheap, fast, efficient open source model that rivaled the most powerful closed models from OpenAI and Anthropic. Nothing from America, nothing from Mistral AI either. And then these guys come out with a crazy model that's 10x cheaper in API pricing than GPT-4o and 15x cheaper than Sonnet, I believe. Really fast, 60 tokens per second, and pretty much equal or better in some benchmarks and worse in some others, but roughly in that ballpark of 4O's quality. And they did it all with approximately just 2048 H800 GPUs, which is actually equivalent to somewhere around 1500 or 1000 1500 H100 GPUs. That's 20 to 30x lower than the amount of GPUs that GPT-4 is usually trained on. They did roughly $5 million in total compute budget. They did it with so little money and such an amazing model, gave it away for free, wrote a technical paper, and definitely it makes us all question if we have the equivalent of Doge for model training, this is an example of that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Efficiency.
Yeah.
Is what you're getting at. So fraction of the price,
yeah.
fraction of the time,
yeah.
dumbed down GPUs essentially. Yeah. What was your surprise when you understood what they had done?
So my surprise was that when I actually went through the technical paper, the amount of clever solutions they came up with.
I haven't read the paper. I need to read the paper. God. They're doing God's work. This is crazy. Yeah. Absolutely. The license as well. Is it MIT? It is MIT. It is MIT. God. That's crazy. That's absolutely crazy. Oh, God.
First of all, they train a mixture of experts model. It's not that easy to train.
MOE model?
There's a lot of the main reason people find it difficult to catch up with OpenAI, especially in the MOE architecture, is that there's a lot of irregular loss spikes. The numerics are not stable. So often, like, you got to restart the training checkpoint again, and a lot of infrastructure needs to be built for that. And they came up with very clever solutions to balance that without adding additional hacks. And they also figured out floating point 8-bit training, at least for some of the numerics. And they cleverly figured out which has to be in higher precision, which has to be in lower precision. To my knowledge, I think floating point 8 training is not that well understood. I think most of the training in America is still running in FP16, maybe OpenAI, and some people are trying to explore that, but it's pretty difficult to get it right. So because necessity is a mother of invention, because they don't have that much memory, that many GPUs, they figured out a lot of numerical stability stuff that makes their training work, and they claimed in the paper that for majority of the training was stable, which means what? They can always rerun those training runs again. And on more data, that
Wait, they
for
can?
majority of the training was stable, which means what? They can always rerun those training runs again. And on more data or better data, and then
that's crazy.
It only trained for 60 days, so it's pretty amazing.
Safe to say you were surprised.
So I was definitely usually the wisdom, or like I wouldn't say wisdom, the myth is that Chinese are just good at copying. So if we stop writing research papers in America, if we stop describing the details of our infrastructure or architecture, and stop open sourcing, they're not going to be able to catch up. But the reality is some of the details in DeepSeek v3 are so good that I wouldn't be surprised if Meta took a look at it and incorporated some of that in Llama 4. Right? I wouldn't necessarily.
While you're panicking about the AI taking your jobs, AI companies are panicking about DeepSeek. While many of us are worried about AI potentially taking over our jobs, there's a different kind of panic happening. Chinese DeepSeek devs just proved Gen AI is a giant scam. Yeah. And actually worth less than 5.5 million. Apparently, these developers have managed to show that training a state-of-the-art AI model is dirt cheap. Some are reporting that 200,000 requests to DeepSeek API only costs $0.5. And now US-based AI companies are in panic mode. Someone just posted this on Metaplane. Engineers are moving frantically to dissect DeepSeek and copy anything and everything we can from it. I'm not even exaggerating. Management is worried about justifying the massive cost of Gen AI organization. How would they face the leadership when every single leader of Gen AI org is making more than what it costs to train? And we have dozens of such leaders. Thoughts? In my opinion, while it automated a lot of jobs, this only means that AI runways won't benefit the AI companies as much as they think it will. Instead, the benefits will go to the end user and companies that adopt it for increasingly less fee. Good time to build company using AIs. Yeah. Crazy. First mover, yeah. Ah.
They say copy, it's all like, sharing science, engineering. But the point is like, it's changing. Like, it's not like China is copycat. They're also innovating.
We don't know exactly the data that it was trained on, right?
Yeah.
Even though it's open source. We know some of the ways and things it was trained on, but not everything.
Correct.
And there's this idea that it was trained on public ChatGPT outputs, which would mean it just was copied, but you're saying it goes beyond that. There's real innovation in this.
Yeah, look, I mean, they've trained it on 14.8 trillion tokens. The internet has so much ChatGPT. If you actually go to any LinkedIn post or X post now, most of the comments are written by AI. You can just see it. Like, people are just trying to write. In fact, even within X, there's like a Grok tweet enhancer, or in LinkedIn there's a AI enhancer, or in Google Docs and Word, there are AI tools to like rewrite your stuff. So if you do something there and copy paste it somewhere on the internet, it's naturally going to have some elements of a ChatGPT like training, right? And there's a lot of people who don't even bother to strip away that I'm a language model part. So they just paste it somewhere, and like, it's very difficult to control for this. I think XAI has spoken about this too. So I wouldn't like disregard their technical accomplishment just because like for some prompts, like who are you, or like which model are you, it responds like that. It doesn't even matter in my opinion.
For a long time, we thought, I don't know if you agreed with this, China was behind in AI. What does this do to that race? Can we say that China is catching up, or has it caught up?
I mean, like, if we say that Meta is catching up to OpenAI and Anthropic, if you make that claim, then the same claim can be made for China catching up to America. A lot of papers from China that have tried to replicate O1. In fact, I saw more papers from China after O1 announcement that tried to replicate it than from America. Like, and the amount of compute DeepSeek has access to is roughly similar to what PhD students in the US have access to. By the way, this is not meant to like criticize others. Like, even for ourselves, like, for Perplexity, we decided not to train models because we thought it's like a very expensive thing. And we thought like there's no way to catch up with the rest. But
will you incorporate DeepSeek into Perplexity?
We already are beginning to use it. I think they have an API, and we're also they have open source await, so we can host it ourselves too. And it's good to like try to start using that because it actually allows us to do a lot of the things at lower cost. But what I'm kind of thinking is beyond that, which is like, okay, if these guys actually could train such a great model with a good team, like, and there's no excuse anymore for companies in the US, including ourselves, to like not try to do something like that.
You hear a lot in public from a lot of, thought leaders in generative AI, both on the research side, on the entrepreneurial side, like Elon Musk and others say that China can't catch up. Like, the stakes are too big, the geopolitical stakes. Whoever dominates AI is going to kind of dominate the economy, dominate the world. It's been talked about in those massive terms. Are you worried about what China proved it was able to do?
Firstly, I don't know if Elon ever said China can't catch up. I'm not aware.
Just the threat of China. He's only identified the threat of letting China. And, Sam Altman has said similar things. We can't let China win the AI race.
It's all, I think you got to decouple what someone like Sam says to like what is in his self-interest, right? Look, I think my point is like whatever you did to not let them catch up didn't even matter. They ended up catching up anyway.
Necessity is the mother of invention,
exactly.
Like you said.
And it's actually, what's more dangerous than trying to do all the things to like not let them catch up and like, all the stuff is what's more dangerous is they have the best open source model and all the American developers are building on that.
Right.
That's more dangerous because then they get to own the mind share, the ecosystem. If the entire American AI ecosystem, look, in general, it's known that once open source is caught up or improved over closed source software, all developers migrate to that. It's historically known, right?
When Llama was being built and becoming more widely used, there was this question, should we trust Zuckerberg? But now the question is, should we trust China? That's a very
You should trust
different...
open source. That's the, like, it's not about who, is it Zuckerberg or is it...
Does it matter then if it's Chinese, if it's open source?
Look, it doesn't matter in the sense that you still have full control. It's you run it as your own set of weights on your own computer. You are in charge of the model, but um, it's not a great look for our own talent to rely on software built by others. Even if it's open source, there's always a point where open source can stop being open source too, right? So the licenses are very favorable today, but
you could close it.
Exactly, if over time they can always change the license. So it's important that we actually have people here in America building, and that's why Meta is so important. Like I still think Meta will build a better model than DeepSeek v3 and open source it, and what they'll call it Llama 4 or 3 point something, doesn't matter. But I think what is more key is that we don't try to focus all our energy on banning them and stopping them, and just try to outcompete and win them. That's just the American way of doing things. Just be better.
And it feels like there's, we hear a lot more about these Chinese companies who are developing in a similar way, a lot more efficiently, a lot more cost effectively, right?
Yeah. Again, look, it's hard to fake scarcity, right? If you raise 10 billion and you're decided to spend 80% of it on a compute cluster, it's hard for you to come up with the exact same solution that someone with 5 million would do. And there's no point, no need to sort of berate those who are putting more money. They're trying to do it as fast as they can.
When we say open source, there's so many different versions. Some people criticize Meta for not publishing everything. And even DeepSeek itself isn't totally transparent.
Sure. Yeah, you can go to the limits of open source and say, I should exactly be able to replicate your training run. But first of all, how many people even have the resources to do that? And compare, I think the amount of detail they've shared in the technical report, actually Meta did that too, by the way. Meta's Llama 3.3 technical report is incredibly detailed and very great for science. So the amount of details these people are sharing is already a lot more than what the other companies are doing right now.
When you think about how much it costs DeepSeek to do this, less than $6 million, think about what OpenAI has spent to develop GPT models. What does that mean for the closed source model ecosystem trajectory, momentum? What does it mean for OpenAI?
I mean, it's very clear that we'll have an open source version of 4.0 or even better than that, and much cheaper than that, open source completely this year.
Made by OpenAI?
Probably not. Most likely not. And I don't think they care if it's not made by them. I think they've already moved to a new paradigm called the O1 family of models. Look, I can't Ilya Sutskever came and said pre-training is at a wall, right? So I mean, he didn't exactly use the word, but he clearly said the age of pre-training is over.
Many people have said that,
right? So that doesn't mean scaling is hit a wall. I think we're scaling on different dimensions now. The amount of time model spends thinking at test time, reinforcement learning, trying to make the model, okay, if it doesn't know what to do for a new prompt, it'll go and reason and collect data and interact with the world, use a bunch of tools. I think that's where things are headed. And I feel like OpenAI is more focused on that right now.
Yeah. Instead of just the bigger, better model,
correct,
reasoning capacities. But didn't you say that DeepSeek is likely to turn their attention to reasoning?
100%. I think they will. And that's why I'm pretty excited about what they'll produce next.
I guess then my question is sort of, what's OpenAI's moat now?
Well, I still think that no one else has produced a system similar to the O1 yet, exactly. I know that there's debates about whether O1 is actually worth it. On maybe a few prompts it's really better, but most of the times it's not producing any differentiated output from Sonnet. But at least the results they showed in O3, where they had competitive coding performance and almost like an AI software engineer level.
Isn't it just a matter of time though before the internet is filled with reasoning data that DeepSeek?
Again, it's possible. Nobody knows yet.
Yeah.
So until it's done, it's resources to do that. And compare I think the amount of detail they've shared in the technical report, Actually, Meta did that too, by the way. Meta's Llama 3.3 technical report is incredibly detailed and very great for science. The amount of details these people are sharing is already a lot more than what the other companies are doing right now.
When you think about how much it costs DeepSeek to do this, less than $6 million, think about what OpenAI has spent to develop GPT models. What does that mean for the closed source model ecosystem trajectory, momentum? What does it mean for OpenAI?
I mean, it's very clear that we'll have like an open source version of 4.0 or even better than that, and much cheaper than that, open source, like completely this year.
Made by OpenAI?
Probably not. Most likely not. And I don't think they care if it's not made by them. I think they've already moved to a new paradigm called the O1 family of models. Look, I can't like Ilya Sutskever came and said pre-training is at a wall, right? So I mean, he didn't exactly use the word, but he clearly said the age of pre-training is over.
Many people have said that,
right? So that doesn't mean scaling has hit a wall. I think we're scaling on different dimensions now. The amount of time model spends thinking at test time, reinforcement learning, like trying to like make the model okay, if it doesn't know what to do for a new prompt, it'll go and reason and collect data and interact with the world, use a bunch of tools. I think that's where things are headed. And I feel like OpenAI is more focused on that right now.
Yeah. Instead of just the bigger, better model,
correct,
reasoning capacities. But didn't you say that DeepSeek is likely to turn their attention to reasoning?
100%. I think they will. And that's why I'm pretty excited about what they'll produce next.
I guess then my question is sort of what's OpenAI's moat now?
Well, I still think that no one else has produced a system similar to the O1 yet, exactly. I know that like there's debates about whether O1 is actually worth it. On maybe a few prompts it's really better, but like most of the times it's not producing any differentiated output from Sonnet. But at least the results they showed in O3 where they had like competitive coding performance and almost like an AI software engineer level.
Isn't it just a matter of time though before the internet is filled with reasoning data that DeepSeek?
Again, it's possible. Nobody knows yet.
Yeah.
So until it's done, it's still uncertain, right?
Right.
So maybe that uncertainty is their mode, that like no one else has the same reasoning capability yet. But by end of this year, will there be multiple players even in the reasoning arena? I absolutely think so.
So are we seeing the commoditization of large language models?
I think we'll see a similar trajectory, just like how in pre-training and like post-training that sort of system 4.0 getting commoditized, where this year will be a lot more commoditization there. I think the reasoning kind of models will go through a similar trajectory, where in the beginning, one or two players really know how to do it, but over time, like...
And who knows, right? Because OpenAI could make another advancement to focus on.
Correct.
But right now, reasoning is their mode.
But by the way, if advancements keep happening again and again and again, like, I think the meaning of the word advancement also loses some of its value, right?
Totally. Even now, it's very difficult, right? Because there's pre-training advancements.
Yeah.
And then we've moved into a different phase.
Yeah, so what is guaranteed to happen is whatever models exist today, that level of reasoning, that level of multimodal capability in like 5 to 10x cheaper models, open source, all that's going to happen. It's just a matter of time. What is unclear is if something like a model that reasons at test time will be extremely cheap enough that like we can just all run it on our phones. I think that's not clear to me yet.
It feels like so much of the landscape has changed with what DeepSeek was able to prove. Could you call it China's ChatGPT moment?
Possible. I mean, I think it certainly probably gave them a lot of confidence that like, we're not really behind. No matter what you do to restrict our compute, like we can always figure out some workarounds. And yeah, I'm sure the team feels pumped about the results.
How does this change like the investment landscape? The hyperscalers that are spending tens of billions of dollars a year on CapEx have just ramped it up huge. And OpenAI and Anthropic that are raising billions of dollars for GPUs, essentially, that what DeepSeek told us is you don't need You don't necessarily need that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think it's very clear that they're gonna go even harder on reasoning, because they understand that like whatever they were building in the previous 2 years is getting extremely cheap. That it doesn't make sense to go justify raising that
Is the
amount of
spending
capital.
proposition the same? Do they need the same amount of high-end GPUs, or can you reason using the lower-end ones that DeepSeek has?
Again, it's hard to say no until proven it's not. But I guess like in the spirit of moving fast, you would want to use the high-end chips, and you would want to like move faster than your competitors. I think like the best talent still wants to work in the team that made it happen first. There's always some glory to like who did this actually, like who's the real pioneer, versus who's the fast follow, right?
That was like kind of like Sam Altman's tweet, kind of veiled response to what DeepSeek has been able to. He kind of implied that they just copied and anyone can copy, right?
Yeah, but then you can always say that like everybody copies everybody in this field. You can say Google did the transformer first. It's not OpenAI, and OpenAI just copied it. Google built the first large language models. They didn't productize it, but OpenAI did it in the productized way. So you can say all this in many ways. It doesn't matter.
I remember asking you, being like, why don't you want to build the model?
Yeah,
that's,
I know.
That's, the glory. And a year later, just 1 year later, you look very, very smart to not engage in that extremely expensive race that has become so competitive. And you kind of have this lead now in what everyone wants to see now, which is like real world applications, killer applications of generative AI. Talk a little bit about like that decision and how that's sort of guided you and where you see Perplexity going from here.
Look, 1 year ago, I don't even think we had something like this is what like 2024 beginning, right? I feel like we didn't even have something like Sonnet 3.5.
Right.
We had GPT-4, I believe, and it was kind of nobody else was able to catch up to it.
Yeah.
But there was no multimodal, nothing. And my sense was like, okay, if people with way more resources and way more talent cannot catch up, it's pretty difficult to play that game. So let's play a different game. Anyway, people want to use these models, and there's one use case of asking questions and getting accurate answers with sources, with real-time information, accurate information. There's still a lot of work there to do outside the model and making sure the product works reliably, keep scaling it up to usage, keep building custom UIs. There's just a lot of work to do, and we would focus on that. And we would benefit from all the tailwinds of models getting better and better. That's essentially what happened. In fact, I would say Sonnet 3.5 made our product so good in the sense that if you use Sonnet 3.5 as the model choice within Perplexity, it's very difficult to find a hallucination. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it dramatically reduced the rate of hallucinations, which meant the problem of question answering, asking a question, getting an answer, doing your fact checks, research, going and asking anything out there, because almost all the information is on the web, was such a big unlock. And that helped us grow 10x over the course of the year in terms of usage.
And you've made huge strides in terms of users, and we hear on CNBC a lot, like big investors who are huge fans.
Yeah.
Jensen Huang himself, right?
Yeah,
he mentioned it in his keynote.
Yeah.
The other night.
He's a pretty regular user. Actually, he's not just saying it. He's actually a pretty regular user.
So a year ago, we weren't even talking about monetization because you guys were just so new and you wanted to, get yourselves out there and build some scale. But now you are looking at things like that, increasingly an ad model, right?
Yeah, we're experimenting with it. I know like there's some controversy on like why should we do ads, whether you can have a truthful answer engine despite having ads. And in my opinion, we've been pretty proactively thoughtful about it, where we said, okay, as long as the answer is always accurate, unbiased, and not corrupted by someone's like advertising budget, only you get to see some sponsored questions, and even the answers to those sponsored questions are not influenced by them. And questions are also like, not picked in a way where it's manipulative. Sure, there's some things that the advertiser also wants, which is they want you to know about their brand, and they want you to know the best parts of their brand. just like how you go and if you're introducing yourself to someone, you want them to see the best parts of you, right? So that's all there, but you still don't have to click on a sponsored question. You can ignore it, and we are only charging them CPM right now. So we ourselves are not even incentivized to make you click yet. So I think considering all this, we're actually trying to get it right long term. Instead of going the Google way of forcing you to click on links.
I remember when people were talking about the commoditization of models a year ago, and you thought, oh, it was controversial, but now it's not controversial. It's kind of like that's happening. And you keeping your eye on that is smart.
By the way, we benefit a lot from model commoditization, except we also need to figure out something to offer to the paid users, like a more sophisticated research agent that can do like multi-step reasoning, go and like do like 15 minutes worth of searching and give you like a analysis, an analyst type of answer. All that's going to come, all that's going to stay in the product. Nothing changes there. But there's a ton of questions every free user asks day-to-day basis that needs to be quick, fast answers. Like it shouldn't be slow. And all that will be free, whether you like it or not. It has to be free. That's what people are used to. And that means like figuring out a way to make that free traffic also monetizable.
So you're not trying to change user habits, but it's interesting because you are kind of trying to teach new habits to advertisers. They can't have everything that they have in a Google 10 blue links search. What's the response been from them so far? Are they willing to accept some of the trade-offs?
Yeah, I mean, that's why they're trying stuff. Like Intuit is working with us, and then there's many other brands. Dell, like all these people are working with us to test, right? They're also excited about look, everyone knows that like whether they like it or not, 5 to 10 years from now, most people are going to be asking AIs most of the things and not on the traditional search engine. Everybody understands that. So everybody wants to be early adopters of the new platforms, new UX, and learn from it and build things together. Not like they're not viewing it as like, okay, you guys go figure out everything else and then we'll come later.
I'm smiling because it goes back perfectly to the point you made when you first sat down today, which is necessity is the mother of all invention, right? And that's what advertisers are essentially looking at. They're saying this field is changing. We have to learn to adapt with it. Okay, Arvind, I took up so much of your time. Thank you so much for taking the time.
People must be coping. Crazy. Absolutely. Yeah. It is master. DeepSeek V3 technical paper. Yeah. Long paper. Long ass paper. Wow. Oh. Okay. Let's see the ingenious way that they did this. Because I haven't read this. DeepSeek V3 technical paper. Okay. Oh, before that, this just means that I can't use it. Yeah, I guess. Utilize quantized operations to enable quantization. Also has a high-level abstraction, blockwise and for ability to classified experimental feature. Issues abandoned. That is something. Once. Haven't looked at the code yet. You've got quantize mapmo, which use end features of torch bfloat 16. You then use the call with torch CPU tensored for debugging purposes. Mapmu output torch XOA. Yeah, ops XOA quantize mapmu. Device. Move it to the device called XOA tensor to run on XOA device. Use with torch compile. And see if this works. I guess that's fine. Whatever. Reading a paper. Or better, someone sums it up for me. We present DeepSeek V3, a strong mixture of expert MOE model with 671 billion total parameters, with 37 active for each token to achieve efficient inference. Oh god. Multi-head latent attention MOA and DeepSeek MOE architecture, which were thoroughly validated in DeepSeek v3 performance. Furthermore, DeepSeek v3 pioneers an thoroughly loss-free strategy for load balancing and sets a multi-token prediction training objective for stronger performance.